So this NBA season, there were 1,230 total games, and every one of them looked different. Because now, some teams' goals are not to win. 10 franchises chose to tank, 8 squads are in the play-in, and there are only 12 total playoff locks. So that's why today, we're picking one word to describe each team's season, and they get crazier as we go. Let's get it. Welcome back to another edition of the Hampton Show. Joel, how are we feeling today?
I'm feeling great. This is the final week of the NBA regular season.
Today, we are picking one word to describe every single team's season. And first, we're going to start with the Atlanta Hawks. My one word for them is validated. They made so many right decisions this year, and it starts with trading Trae Young. That turns out to be the right decision. They signed Nickeil Alexander-Walker all the way last summer. They handed the keys to Jalen Johnson, and yes, that seems like an easy decision to make, but it got validated by him becoming a first-time All-Star in February. They traded Kristaps Porzingis. They kept Quinn Snyder, despite Trae wanting another coach fired. That was the right decision. So all of these smart moves have now culminated into them becoming 10 games over 500, a top 6 team in the East, and now a playoff lock.
I'm going to go with transformed. They went from being a team that was over-reliant on a small guard for creation and scoring, and they pivoted. They added more length to the team. Jalen Johnson ascended into being a point forward, so he is now playing the role of a distributor and a scorer for the team. And I like the identity that Atlanta is building. They may have not had a successful outing in every move they've made. For example, selecting reshaping with the number 1 overall pick, but the idea of what they want to do, which is building a team of shooters, defenders, players that are versatile. I think they have succeeded in that, and they are one of the teams that in the offseason we had high hopes for. They didn't quite accomplish those expectations, but they're just a notch below, and they traded Trae Young, and they're starting fresh. So I think they have completely reinvented themselves.
Yeah, I think that's another great word. Transformed is they've been 2 different teams this year, and their record shows that. The Boston Celtics, next team on the list, I put recharged. They now have a new supporting cast around Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jayson Tatum. JT's obviously back fully healthy. Jaylen Brown played like an MVP candidate for most of the season. And yes, they had health from Derek White and Jaylen Brown all year, but what Coach Joe Mazzulla has done is good enough for him to win Coach of the Year. I don't care how he feels about it. Recharge is the perfect word for Boston.
Surprising. I didn't expect them to be this good. Mm-hmm. I thought that they would be in a year similar to the Pacers where they were going to tank and try to get a top pick because his draft class is loaded. But Joe Mazzulla proved himself to be one of the best coaches in the NBA. Not only did Jaylen Brown take on the role of being the lead guy, but Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, they all improved, and Derek White is a legit defensive player of the year caliber type of player. Wemby is undoubtedly the best, so he's going to win the award. But Derek White, I mean, he's the first Celtic since 2008 to have 75 blocks and 75 steals in a season since Kevin Garnett. So Derek White has been that impactful. And then the bench, like their young players, Hugo Gonzalez, Baylor Shireman, Queta, players that we thought were an afterthought, they have really thrived with Boston. And now we have real optimism for them maybe competing for the championship because Jayson Tatum has returned. And while his scoring hasn't been the scoring of old, he's still playmaking, rebounding, and defending at a really high level. And the fact that he's even playing this season is surprising. So the Celtics have had a shocking, overachieving season all around.
Yeah, it's a bit of nostalgia with this season, too, because back in 2015, the Celtics were supposed to tank, and Brad Stevens was too good of a coach for them to tank. Now, 2025, 2026 rolls around. It looks like everybody thinks this is going to be a gap year that was kind of put on them before the season, and Joe Mazzulla was so good of a coach that it really hasn't happened. So I think the fact that Brad Stevens is still involved and the impact those young guys you mentioned have had on the team is a credit to both Brad Stevens and obviously Joe Mazzulla. Brooklyn Nets is on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think the word for them is strikeout. They had 5 first-round picks, and most likely none of them will make an all-rookie team. They struck out on every single one of them. I'm not going to say their career is over, but the high leverage swings that they took on the guys, it looks like they're not going to work.
No, I think Yegor has been the only rookie for me that I've looked at it and I said, I think that's a long-term rotational player. And Drake Powell. I don't think that Danny Wolf translates long term. I think his numbers can look good at times because he's just playing on a bad team, and those are volume stats. Nolan Triori, very disappointed in, really hasn't made an impact. Watch him in person, really didn't see much from him either. So I think that Yegor and Powell are the only two that I actually have any optimism for long term. It just feels like a typical retool rebuild year for the Nets, where they're bad. They're not the worst team in the East, and maybe that helps them out in getting a top pick, but they need that influx of talent to actually make them competitive and worth watching.
Yep, I agree. The Charlotte Hornets, the team on my t-shirt, pretty simple. I just put eye-opening for them. How'd you feel?
It was emerging. They emerged into something that was possible as long as they stayed healthy. And this was the year they finally stayed healthy. Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, Concanepo. I think that is your three that you're building for the future. And now it's just about filling up the holes around them. I think Diabate could be a good long-term center. Miles Bridges is a really good player, but you have to wonder where he fits in all of this when Charlotte needs a little bit more defense and can use a half-court creator as well, because Concanepo, Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, because of LaMelo Ball's shot die, his inefficiencies, he's not the best half-court creator. So I feel like that's like something they need. So I would definitely be looking at Charlotte to make a move. They are a team that feels like they need their 2013 Iguodala, where the Warriors got Iguodala in
Okay.
2014. That's what they need. The Splash Brothers needed that. They needed somebody to complete them, and that was Iguodala for them. For Charlotte, it could be somebody else.
Why do you always make me hate on a team I really like? You compare them to 2014 Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. I get the Concanepo aspect of it. LaMelo Ball, as good as he's been, I don't think that they're an Iguodala away from winning a championship. That is not true.
Nobody thought the Warriors were an Iguodala away from winning a championship when they beat Denver in the first round and Iguodala joined them. I mean, I look at Concanepo, and Concanepo can mirror what Klay Thompson did offensively. I'm not calling LaMelo Ball Steph Curry, but both early in their careers,
Yes,
ankle injuries, they were injury prone. They were labeled as that. LaMelo Ball was an all-star by what? Year two? He was an all-star already?
Golden State was at least knocking on the door. Charlotte hadn't made it out of the play-in yet.
Well,
Can we at least let that happen?
Charlotte now, they have a chance to make the playoffs, and
After winning 2 games.
are they not a dark horse team in the playoff race to shock somebody?
No,
I think
they're
that they
not.
could take somebody to the wire.
Boston sent a message to them earlier this week. They're not a sleeper to upset anybody. I would like to see them in at least a playoff series before we start bringing up the Golden State Warriors name and all this. That's all I'm saying.
I just look at what they're doing. They have one of the best offenses in the NBA. LaMelo Ball has superstar impact. Concanepo is the best shooting rookie in the history of the league, who offers some real on-ball creation. And then they got B. Brandon Miller. I mean, the Warriors
Inefficient Central.
The Warriors ain't have three offensive gifted guys like that. They had Steph, Clay, and Draymond, which I mean for sure that was better. And then they added
Three
Iguodala.
Hall of Famers, yeah.
And then they had Iguodala. But I'm saying, hey, don't be surprised if Charlotte is a real threat in the future. And it's because of this big three, this core that you are failing to acknowledge right now.
I'm not failing to acknowledge anything. I just said it was eye-opening. They had a great season, but comparing them was a little bit too far. I'll tell you one thing they don't have, and we can bring last week into this. They don't have the Rookie of the Year. You and I had a conversation last Thursday, and the odds flipped. And I text you about what Cooper Flagg did last weekend, and you said 3 words. It is over. It is over. They don't have the Rookie of the Year, and I'm glad. I just wanted to take my lap of faith here.
Hey, they don't have the Rookie of the Year. Congratulations. In the preseason, the odds were 85% Cooper Flagg and 15% went to everybody else. Split it however you see it. But Concanepo might have not even been top 3 in the Rookie of the Year race. Because I for damn sure think that Dylan Harper was getting more Rookie of the Year buzz than Concanepo. But Concanepo played outstanding. So even if he's not the rookie of the year. He has a big impact on this team. And I am not comparing this Hornets team to the 2015, the 2016 Golden State Warriors. No, I am comparing them to the ascending Warriors. I'm talking about when Steph Curry lit up the Knicks at the Garden and we're like, whoa, who's this? Who's this catching a world by storm? At that point, they were still a question mark. Nobody knew what to expect. Now we look back and say they became what they became. Charlotte, I'm saying, can have that type of trajectory. That's their ceiling.
They at least had playoff scars. This team has zero. And they're ninth in the Eastern Conference. I get it. I'm a Charlotte fan. I want them to make the postseason, especially for watchability purposes. However, they have no playoff scars. So I get the ascension that you're trying to give in for the Golden State Warriors, but it took them to lose a couple series to eventually win the 4 titles that they did.
Yeah, just wait. Just wait until they get Giannis in the offseason. And you're going to be taking back what you're saying.
Miles Bridges for Giannis Antetokounmpo. We're daydreaming
and
already.
Picks. They have a lot of picks they could trade. Charlotte could trade some picks now. And if they get Giannis, you're going to be walking a lot of what you're saying back.
Here we go. Chicago Bulls, one word for them, 4 letters, late. They were way too late to pull the plug on the GM, the VP of basketball ops. Pretty much everybody on the roster, they were too late on trading away. That's why they got no picks for anybody. That's a one word for their season.
They're just stuck. That's what they are. Mm-hmm. They are finally moving off of their old vets and they're young again. But the guards that they have on their team, like Josh Giddey, Rob Dillingham, these are afterthoughts. Yes. Giddey's putting up good numbers, but he's an afterthought at this point. It's kind of like empty numbers for him. And then Rob Dillingham, you're hoping that he can develop into something. But right now, they are just like in a complete retool, reset, a stuck period. And I think the optimistic viewpoint of this team is that if you're a Bulls fan, they finally look like they're trying to be bad, which is good.
Yeah, all that is true. The Cleveland Cavaliers, underwhelming. No one expected them to finish outside of the top 3 and make a blockbuster trade just to remain a contender. Defense has been a problem since All-Star break. It's not really that much a surprise. A team with James Harden on it would struggle with defense. And you can make the argument that they're 18-6 with James Harden, but just look at the opponents. Are they a team that's going to beat Atlanta in the first round? I don't know. I
think you're beyond disrespectful to even act as if Atlanta could beat Cleveland in the first round. The Cavaliers are a real threat to make the NBA Finals out the East.
God.
Donovan Mitchell is one of the best playoff performers we have in this league. The X factor.
How many conference finals has he made?
I would say the X factor, he's made 0, but it's not been his fault. It's not on him. It's not his fault.
Of course not.
I would say James Harden, of course, we know he has to perform, but I'd say the X factors are Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Evan Mobley needs to show.
They've always showed up in the playoffs.
He needs to be aggressive. Jared Allen needs to be aggressive. He needs to impose his will. Those are the guys that are going to swing things for the Cleveland Cavaliers. James Harden, he's 36 years old. He's still an all-star player. He's going to do what he does as a playmaker. And for you to act as if he hasn't been part of great defensive teams in the past, I mean, that's the last time we're going to get away with some James Harden disrespect. The thing is that James Harden gives Cleveland a real shot because you can count on him to be healthy in the postseason. That is why. And that is something they couldn't count on with Garland. My word for them is incomplete because we know what this season is for them. We know what they're going to be measured by. It is the postseason. And they had a down period this year. They bounced back to be top 4 in the Eastern Conference. They're 18-6 with James Harden, but all of that is incomplete because you need to prove it in the postseason. They need to finally show us why people have believed in what their ceiling can be. And I think this postseason can be that for them. It could be the moment they prove people wrong.
Number one, the lights have always been too bright for Jared Allen. He admitted so himself against your team. Number two, James Harden, you said he's going to do what he does. I thought you were going to finish that sentence with he's going to do what he does in the playoffs. because that's exactly what's going to happen. Evan Mobley, what happens to him in the playoffs is he gets left, and if he can shoot the rock, maybe he'll have an impact. We know he'll have an impact on defense, but offense is going to be his X factor. Donovan Mitchell, I mentioned the no conference finals thing, but I can bring in the no NBA finals for James Harden. And the fact that you're arguing for an NBA finals for a cast of characters that have a resume like this is laughable.
I don't think it is. James Harden, are we going to take into account the misfortune that he's had? 2021 grade 2 hamstring injury when he could. Nets should have won the finals that year. 2018, Chris Paul getting hurt in game 6. In game 5, at the end of game 5 when they went up 3-2. I mean, James Harden has not been to the finals because of misfortune. So as long as this team is healthy and gives him a chance,
and because
he will play well.
James Harden has not made the NBA finals because he has not shown up in the biggest moments of the playoffs. Not because of misfortune, because of his own doing. That's why. And that's where we disagree.
I disagree with that notion because I think James Harden has been better than people give him credit for. He has a ton of great playoff moments. And last year in the playoffs, he averaged 20 points and 9 assists per game. So, yes, as long as he will give you that for a series. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen need to show up. That is who needs to show up. I think James Harden will be just fine. He will be fine.
So, Cleveland's NBA Finals chances that you are so confident in is relying upon Jared Allen and Evan Mobley showing up.
Yeah, because I know Mitchell and Harden will.
Okay. Dallas Mavericks, the one word for them is understaffed. Best thing long-term for them to happen is that they were understaffed because the 2026 NBA draft pick is their only draft pick they own and control until 2031. So it was the right move, even though this season sucked. It made sense to do what they did.
Hopeful. Cooper Flagg gives them hope. He's been phenomenal. And you look at every teenage record set in NBA history, he's already probably shattered it. He's been unbelievable. I think the last week or so, he is 50 ball, 45 against the Lakers. The duel between him and LeBron was really cool to see. If it wasn't for Cooper Flagg, I don't know what Mavericks fans would be doing right now because the Luka trade flopped. They already traded Anthony Davis away. Yeah. Hey, it's already over. So Cooper Flagg is the only reason why Mavericks fans are optimistic for the future.
Yeah, and it just gets, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I never have been. I don't think anything like that as far as rigging games. I think it's impossible to do in the game of basketball. However, it is strange that Adam Silver has been so against taking, and the teams with the lowest odds the last 2 years, the Dallas Mavericks and the Atlanta Hawks, have won the lottery in back-to-back years. I just want to say that is strange and put that on record. But I am happy they have Cooper Flagg just for the sake of their fans, like you said. Denver Nuggets, the one word for them is inconsistent. They're on a 10-game win streak right now, but it was a brutal previous month or 30 days for them, and they just haven't found the consistency. And hopefully this is a sign of the future, and they're just peaking at the right time because a 10-game win streak, we're starting to get into that double-digit point where maybe it's just not a phase.
My word for them is health. I think the biggest X factor on the team and in the entire NBA playoffs for that matter is Aaron Gordon. Yeah. If you can guarantee me Aaron Gordon's health, Denver is hard to pick against.
Yes.
The San Antonio matchup the other night, he guarded Wemby, he guarded Fox, he guarded them as well as you can guard anybody. And he is the difference between Denver being top 10 level defense versus being a bottom 10 defense. That is the impact that Aaron Gordon makes. And this is the team that took OKC to 7 games last year with worse depth and with his hamstring essentially falling off the bone and being hurt in the game 7 that he played in, and he still decided to go out there. So I think health is the only thing that is holding this team back. Cam Johnson is playing much better. They have better depth from last year. And Aaron Gordon, when he plays, Denver is one of the best teams in the NBA, and that is proven by the net ratings and also by their record when he does play.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon's a perfect example of how much your role matters in the NBA. In Orlando, a lot of people wanted him to be more than what he is, And that resulted with a lot of people not really knowing what the future of his NBA career was. He ended up getting traded for Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a protected first-round pick. And now he is a guy that constantly the NBA media is bringing up as the X factor and most important piece of this team. He was part of the reason why Michael Porter Jr. was expendable defensively, because they have that amount of trust in AG. The Detroit Pistons are next. I think disrespected is the best word for them.
I'm going to go with a resilient. The defensive tenacity has been there all season. When Cade had a collapsed lung and needed to be taken to a different level, and that was a moment where they could have used it as an excuse to slip, to not finish first in the East. They doubled down. Their defense has been incredible. Dennis Jenkins in the month of April has been averaging 20 points and 10 assists per night. He's played really well, and he's been somebody they found this year, and he kind of came out of nowhere. I think the Pistons have been resilient, and they have stood at the top of the East all year long, despite being disrespected and having moments where you could question what they'll be. But now with Cade coming back for the playoffs, this is a team that can make the NBA Finals.
I agree. Golden State Warriors, I bounced back and forth between two words here. One was confused and one was aimless. They have no real plan for the future. The two timeline thing died 2 years ago. I don't know what this team is or wants to be, and I don't think they know either.
I'm just going to go with injuries. Once Jimmy Butler suffered the ACL injury, their season was over. They didn't have enough talent to compensate for that type of loss. I think they're going to be a real player in the Giannis sweepstakes this offseason. They will be willing to trade 3 or 4 first-round picks to go get Giannis, to pair him up with Steph for a year or two, because that is the only realistic way they're going to be able to compete in the Western Conference and go on a deep playoff run.
They're the most desperate team, and sometimes the most desperate teams in those circumstances are the most scary, especially as far as offers go. I agree with you there. The Houston Rockets, I put offensiveless. They're a half-court nightmare. The vibes pretty much followed Kevin Durant from Phoenix to Houston. It's a soulless, kind of lifeless team right now. And not to mention the burner scandal that happened throughout it all. It feels like bad vibes or just weird vibes follow KD at this stage of his career.
I went with chaotic. Mm-hmm. The season for them has been all over the place. They've looked great at times. Then they got injured. They lost their rebounding value with Steven Adams' injury, which really hurt them a lot. The spacing issues have been apparent. They've gotten embarrassed on national TV. They've gotten embarrassed with headlines and news stories. And yet they recently are on a win streak. It's been a season that's been all over the place. But with the recent injury to the Lakers, it's like, okay, the Rockets maybe could get out the first round now. Like they could advance and have a better year than they did last year. Yep. And that's despite all the chaos that's happened around them.
I agree. Indiana Pacers, Cancun. They never looked like they cared about this season, ever.
That's why the word I went for them was planned. This was a planned operation. Their goal was to sit Halliburton all year long. You don't got to return. Just, he just had his first 5-on-5, so shout out to him. If you get a little bit dinged up, okay, you're out 5 games, you're out 6 games, you're out 7 games. This was a planned season from Indiana, and I think that they should feel happy about it, because there's a 50% chance, if I'm not mistaken, that their pick is going to fall into the top 4, or it's going to be between picks 5 and 9. If it falls within the top 4, I mean, could you imagine the Pacers, who just added Zubats, adding one of Darren Peterson, AJ DeBanza, Cam Boozer, or Caleb Wilson?
Number one, this wasn't planned. I guarantee the plan was not to start 1-13. This was a team before the season that people, I'm not going to bring up names, people debated would be better than the Boston Celtics.
Well, to be fair, I thought the Celtics would be doing this too.
Okay, that's fair. They didn't plan on being 1-13, 2-16. They didn't plan on being this bad. Sure, once they saw the writing on the wall, they're like, okay, yes, we can go get the pick, whatever it is. But the more likely scenario that you described is that they lose their pick. And it falls between 5 and 9. And that, in that specific circumstance, that would be disastrous.
I don't think
Absolutely
so.
disastrous. I do.
I disagree because I think between the 5 and 9 slots in the draft, that's where we start talking about the guards. We start talking about Kingston Flemings, Keaton Wagler, Mikel Brown Jr., Yaxo Lendeborg, who's not a guard, but I think like he falls within that range a little bit. If you're the Pacers, would you trade Kingston Flemings, Mikel Brown Jr., Darius Acuff, or Keaton Wagler for Zubats? Yes, I think you would. I think the Pacers told themselves the top 4 of this draft we cannot miss on. But if we don't fall with if the pick falls within 5 through 9, we're fine. We're fine trading away that pick. And now their pick in 2031 is not unprotected going to the Clippers, because I think that pick, because of the uncertainty of how far along down the future it is, that pick is very valuable too.
You're right, but they're not just trading Kingston Fleming or Keaton Wagler or anybody for Ivica Zubac. It was this year's first round pick. It was Benedict Mathurin. It was Isaiah Jackson. It was a 2029 first and a 28 second. That is a lot, and that is a horrific outcome. And to trade that many assets for Ivica Zubac, who I don't know if you watched start 6 and 17 for the Clippers, he didn't look like himself. Didn't look like himself this year.
It's not 2031, it's 2029, like you just referenced. It's 2029.
Yeah.
If the pick falls between 5 and 9, the Pacers don't forfeit that pick. So it would really be the 6 to pick 5 through 9 in the 2026 draft, Benedict Mathurin and Isaiah Jackson for Zubats. I think that's fine. Because of the guard heavy draft that this draft is going to be within those slots. Benedict Mathurin, can be a really good scorer, microwave scorer, but he doesn't pass the ball. And he kind of, I kind of feel like Benedict Mathurin has kind of reached the ceiling already, where he is like the 6'6" version of Cam Thomas, where he's a very gifted scorer and he can get hot, but he can also shoot you out of games. He's not going to provide much defense despite the physical tools that he possesses. So he has more upside than somebody like Cam Thomas to be a very good rotational player and be consistent. But Indiana moved on from him for a reason, because he was due for a contract and they weren't going to pay him. Losing Isaiah Jackson hurts, but he's been very injured with the Pacers as of late. So I think that you kind of forfeit him, but I think it was fine. I think that obviously the end goal for Indiana is to hopefully get a pick from 1 to 4, one of those. If they can add one of those players to this team, they can win the championship next year.
The odds of that happening, yes, might be in their favor as far as the lottery pick. How many times in the last 2 years have we seen the top of the lottery percentage teams fall back out of the top 4? That's all I'm saying. Yeah. And not only did they give up everything we already mentioned, they also take on that contract. Ivica Zubac turns 30 next year, and he's going to be making north of over $20 million for the next 2 seasons. That's all I'm saying. I understand why they made the move. They had to fill the Miles Turner-sized hole in the starting lineup. However, there is a dark side of that trade.
And Zubac is way better than Miles Turner.
We shall see. We shall see. He didn't look like it to start the season. That's all I'm saying. He didn't look like it to start the season. Small sample size, I get it. He didn't look like it to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana's scary, man.
The team he got traded from was the LA Clippers. One word for them is hollow. They just wasted one of Kawhi's best seasons of his career, and it looks like it's going to result in nothing. They trade their second and third best player. They cut Chris Paul, and they had one of the biggest scandals in NBA history, which still doesn't have a resolution. So in spite of all of this happening, and despite Kawhi having his best season yet, it looks like it's going to be a very, very hollow season for them.
I can understand that logic. I went with Raleigh. I went with a more positive outlook on their year, because they started out terrible and now they're going to make the playoffs. I think that they're going to be the 8th or 7th seed. There's a lot of optimism for what they did this year, because they brought in Darius Garland, who's an all-star guard, 26, like in his prime. Kobe Sanders is a young player that also has shown flashes. Their center Niederhauser, Isaiah Jackson has played well for this team. And then Mathurin is like a good scoring punch off the bench. So this went from a team that was very old to having now an influx of young players. And for a team that didn't have much of that and doesn't have their picks that they own, they needed that. And if they can get the pick from Indiana, and if it does convert 5 through 9, then they can add another young player to this team. So it makes the picks that they have traded away in the past not obsolete, because those still matter, but it gives them a pathway to still get better with young talent because they have been able to make smart trades to pivot. I think that they have had a positive year.
Yeah, that Garland trade felt like a life raft that they needed. The fact that I think two craziest trade moves of the year were the Zubac trade and then the Garland for Harden trade. The fact that it both involved the same team speaks to how desperate they were to get younger. And you're right, they achieved that goal. The LA Lakers, I put frustrating just with all the injuries they had right when they were getting healthy. I mean, for the first half of the season, they couldn't get Luka, LeBron, and AR on the floor together. Once they finally did, they put together a run, and then the rug gets pulled out from under them. What I'm not going to sit here and do, though, is act like they were going to go to the NBA Finals. And okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same page about that. No. But it is frustrating.
No, it's frustrating. I agree with your word choice. And then JJ Redick, I don't think that he should be catching flack for calling out his players.
No, I don't.
I think Jared Vanderbilt has not done anything offensively, and DeAndre Ayton can't catch a ball sometimes. So I think those are all valid reasons to be frustrated with this team. They are very reliant on their star power, and that's why the word I had for them was volatile. That's why they can be volatile, because they go as their stars go. If they don't have a good game, or if you have the plan to defend them, it's going to look like how OKC made them look a week ago.
Yep, absolutely. Memphis Grizzlies, local team here. I put surrender. They threw in the towel on John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. So one word I thought for them.
Searching. They're searching for the player on their current team that's going to be here for the long term, players they can build around. I think that they have that in Cedric Howard. They have that in Zach Edey, Jalen Wells to an extent. Those are the young players. So now it's about, in this draft, finding somebody to help build with what they have going on already. So I think they're just searching for something to build around right now.
Yeah, they desperately need a point guard replacement. Yes, you can point to Ty Jerome. Seen him at a coffee shop out in the suburbs 2 of the last 3 days, by the way. Did not say anything, was too much of a fanboy. However, you need to find a young guard of the future that matches with Coward and Jalen Wells, like you said. And I think they're a team that, there's been a lot of talk about the 5 through 9 range on this show, but if they fall there, I think they're going to be fine with their draft record and how much hits Zach Kleiman has had. I trust him to either take it there or do whatever he can to trade up and take whoever he wants. But I do think they made the right decision this season on moving on from the previous iteration of themselves. The Miami Heat, one word I had for them was mid.
Middling. That same thing is mid.
Mm-hmm.
Bam scored 83, so there's that. That's what they can hang their 25-26 season on. But this is a team that they made a run for Giannis, and if they got Giannis for the proposed trade package that they offered, which was Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, other players, we don't know who the other players were, multiple picks and swaps, we could be looking at the Heat a little bit differently with what they would have had going on. But they are still searching for that star that becomes available for trade that they can go and get to make this team a contender and relevant at the top of the East again.
Yeah, it's a team that I don't think should go after Ja Morant in the summer. This is hard for me to say. I made a TikTok that's coming out later this week about my 5 foot by 5 foot Ja Morant poster. As you know, he played his last game in Memphis, or sat on the bench for his last game in Memphis this week. And now I have to come to a decision. I jump on a call with my financial advisor, and the first thing he asked me is why I have a poster of Ja Morant behind me in a Grizzlies uniform, because it's not going to happen, and he's going to move on this summer. But I think what happens to Ja Morant is going to be similar to what happens to Kevin Durant this year. Kevin Durant left the Phoenix Suns, and they got better without him. Ja Morant will leave the Memphis Grizzlies, and I think they will get better without him. I'm not rooting for this. Ja is quite literally my favorite player of all time. I hope he goes to Miami or a good situation and revitalizes his career, but it's just so far gone that I don't know if he is resilient enough to do that. So Miami Heat, it seems like they're going to do everything they can. They are going to be desperate, just like the Golden State Warriors and the Giannis thing, but I don't think the fallback plan should be Ja at all. Speaking of Ja, the Milwaukee Bucks, the next team on the list, the one word I have for them is Shams Charania. I think the Giannis thing has been far overstated. I don't want to bring it up or even talk about it much on this podcast. However, they were in the news this week because they were not willing to trade Ryan Rollins for Ja Morant, which I'm sure you were very, very happy about.
It would have been a massive mistake. Okay. Ryan Rollins is already better than Ja Morant.
Wow. Okay.
Ryan Rollins defends. He can score 17 a night. I'm fine with that. I'd rather the two-way player than a player who is injury prone, doesn't play any defense, and can't shoot the ball. So Ryan Rollins to me can shoot, he could defend, he could score. Give me that all day over Ja Morant.
If you're a Bucks fan, would you, and I know my answer, would you rather trade for Ja and you would not have to give up Ryan Rollins and that keeps Giannis, or would you rather just trade Giannis and move on?
Trade Giannis and move on.
I agree.
The word for the Bucks is resetting. I think with all the pressure that's been put on them publicly, they have to go into a complete reset, and I think that's going to happen this offseason.
I agree. Minnesota Timberwolves, one word I had for them was defective. Their season reminded me of a kid who got like a brand new high-tech toy, but no matter how many times the parents changed out the batteries in it, the device never really worked properly. No matter how much tinkering the coaching staff did with this team, there was nothing that can make them as consistent as their talent. Yes, we know the Timberwolves went to back-to-back Western Conference Finals, but what no one fails to mention is what happened in those Western Conference Finals. I think they're at a point where that's expected of them, and the fact that, with expectations come great pressures, and a 6 seed is not going to fly in Anthony Edwards in the midst of his prime.
They're inconsistent, whether it's been Anthony Edwards' defense that has been inconsistent all year long. It's been bad. Julius Randle's been inconsistent. Mm-hmm. Jaden McDaniels' offense has been inconsistent. I think the role that he's playing doesn't suit him defensively either, as like their only point of attack defender. That's what they are, and they haven't gotten that consistency from their bench either. Losing Alexander Walker was a very big loss. And now they have somewhat recouped that with trading for Ayo Dosunmu, but we don't know what version of the Wolves we're going to get. And I think that is why I chose that word for them.
Yeah, it's the best way to sum up their season. New Orleans Pelicans, my one word is Zion Williamson. It's the story of his career. He does not affect winning. And you continue to argue this with me for a reason that I don't know. He played 62 games this year. They won 26 of those games. Mm-hmm. By the way, 3 years ago, he played 70 games and got hurt in the play-in tournament. So this is what happens when Zion is your best player. I think it's time to move on with Trey Murphy and say goodbye to Zion. Move
on with Trey Murphy being the guy?
Well, not being the guy, but a centerpiece of your future. Just similar to Cedric Howard in Memphis. Like, Ced's not going to be the franchise-altering player, but he's going to be a piece there in the future.
They're directionless. That's what it is. What you failed to mention is that they have failed to build a roster that even complements Zion. That's number one. No, this roster doesn't complement Zion. He's sharing 1,000 of his minutes with Derek Queen on the floor, and Derek Queen can't play defense. He's a defensive liability. So I don't think they have a direction. They would have had tied for the best odds to get the first pick with the pick they traded to Atlanta. So now Atlanta's going to benefit from that. So, yeah, they're just directionless.
Yeah, and the fact that all of this happened, them winning 26 games, they weren't trying to tank. They don't own this year's pick, and they are, out of the 10 teams who are outside of the play-in and playoff picture, they are the only team who does not own their pick and did not actively try to lose the entire season. The New York Knicks, I think the one word's confusing. People like me, outsiders looking in, I'm fine with what their season was. You knew there's going to be an adjustment period. However, internally, the expectations there, even from their owner, it feels like they should have performed a little bit better. So it's been confusing, a season of mixed signals for the New York Knicks.
Adaptation, evolving. Charles Darwin theory, evolution. That is the words that describe the Knicks. It hasn't been all rainbows and sunshine. It's been a bumpy ride. But every statistic would point to this team being better than last year, their depth being better. Jalen Brunson and Cat are clicking right now.
Their
Josh
defense
Hart
being better
is shooting well from three. Everything's been better with the Knicks.
because of Mikal Bridges.
Adaptation. New system being learned, evolving into a team that makes the conference finals and then goes to the NBA finals. That is what describes the Knicks.
They shouldn't have traded for Mikal Bridges. He has nothing to do with their defense being top 5 in the NBA, top 10 in the NBA all season long.
He does.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
OG Anunoby is number 1, though.
There it is. OKC, word for them is dominant. They've been the second most impacted team by injuries this season, and despite it, they have the best record in the NBA. Simple as that.
They're the standard, and that's my word for them, standard, because everybody's trying to be them. They've been the number 1 seed in the West for 3 years in a row now. And there's a crazy stat about Chet Holmgren that everywhere he's been number one seed in high school, number 1 team in the country, number 1 seed at Gonzaga, all this good stuff. And OKC is just a proven winner. They have been able to overcome injuries in back-to-back seasons and still be at the top of the West.
I agree. Orlando, other side of the spectrum here. Disappointing. I think by far the biggest disappointment in the entire NBA. As a Grizzlies fan who owns the pick that is better between the Suns or the Magic, every game that the Magic win, I am so sad about because they are in that midst of the play-in race in the Eastern Conference. And it seems like it's really up for grabs, but if let's just say they get bounced in the play-in, a team that traded 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane and had Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner healthy towards the end of the season, that would be an even bigger disappointment than they already are.
For them, the word I used was disconnected. Jamal Mosley, I think this is his last year with the team.
Yeah, he's been on a hot seat, it feels like, for 6 months. The whole Paolo Banchero public calling out situation where Paulo said we don't make halftime adjustments and Jamal Mosley said, well, our players don't play hard. It seems like that was the crack in the foundation, and we all know what's going to happen after the season, unfortunately. Philadelphia 76ers are next. Average is the word for them.
Dangerous. Paul George, Embiid healthy, Tyrese Maxey. They definitely pose some level of threat.
Are they more dangerous than the Hornets?
Healthy? Yes.
I agree.
I think they are.
I agree. All the reason the Hornets are nothing like the Ascending Warriors.
How do you feel wearing their merchandise and then trash talking them?
I feel confident because I'm not trash talking them. You're comparing them to future 4-time champions, and I don't see them on that trajectory. It's not that crazy. You make me feel so alienated in these conversations. Like I am just the craziest person on earth wearing a Hornets t-shirt and not expecting them to win 4 titles in their future. That's not crazy. You're the crazy.
I never set their projection to be that. I never said they're going to win 4 titles. I just said the ascension is
similar to 3 Hall of Famers.
Did Curry have ankle injuries?
Yes, he did.
Did LaMelo have ankle injuries?
Yes, he did.
Okay, now when they're healthy, when Steph was healthy, he made an All-NBA team right after his year with the ankle injuries, right? He made an All-Star team. LaMelo just made an All-Star team. Is LaMelo going to make an All-NBA team? Yes or no?
Nah. I don't know. I mean, what is this, year 7, year 6?
Probably. He might. He probably might make an All-NBA team.
Probably might make it. That's confident.
Kneppel, Klay Thompson, they not similar?
To Klay Thompson, yes. Defensively, we need to see a little bit more. But yes.
Oh, no, defensively, no. We know that it's Klay. But, they have a foundation to build on. And I think that they're like Iguodala he saw what they were building. It's a vet looking at a young team saying they could be special. I think there's going to be a vet that looks at Charlotte and says, I think they're going to be special, and they're going to want to ride this wave.
This is what I will say. This summer is the most important summer in the history of the Charlotte Hornets franchise. And the reason is this. What happens in this era of the NBA is you capitalize whenever you have guys on younger contracts. Kneppel on this contract is probably the best contract in the entire NBA. You need to capitalize on that, whether that's moving Miles Bridges for another defender or moving somebody else for something else. But they need to capitalize on what they have now because, yes, they can run it back, but I promise you this time next year, if they're sitting in the Eastern Conference play-in, that's not going to be a success. At 24, Phoenix Suns. The word is culture. Reestablish culture. And I think that Kevin Durant trade had a lot to do with it.
Ascending.
One thing I do want to say.
Maluach.
I swear, after the flag thing, I almost sent you a screenshot of Kaman Malawatch's basketball reference. I was like, Jack, that's too tough. It's too rough.
Yeah, because you're gonna knock a guy for not playing because they were developing him this entire year, and then in his first start, he has 13 rebounds and multiple blocks. Yes, because Kaman Malawach is a star.
I'll never forget you went on like a 10-minute run before last year's summer league about how excited you were to watch Kaman Malawach, and he didn't do shit in summer league the entire time. I don't even remember a summer league appearance by Kaman Malawach.
Yeah, and then he's gotten some burn as of recently because I've been tapped in, and when he's played, he's made an impact. And Malawach, I've been very, very happy watching him.
Okay. So one thing that probably
He'd be
won't
the
make
Grizzlies' best center.
Zach Edey's still on the roster.
Malawach is better than him.
Okay, you can't even say it with a straight face. One thing that did feel nostalgic to the Grizzlies is Dylan Brooks this week wrote a Players Tribune article about himself. And in that article, he called the Phoenix Suns the sleeping monster underneath the bed.
Yeah.
And this feels a lot like poking the bear. He said how much no one wants to see the Phoenix Suns in the playoffs and went on and on about how dangerous the Suns are. When right now they're currently in the play-in and they would either play the San Antonio Spurs or the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round. I hate to break it to Dylan Brooks. This would be the exact same outcome as the Lakers series. And I would go on a limb and say he wouldn't show up to media availability yet again.
Okay. They're ascending.
It was a great season. And he reestablished the culture. I'll give it to him. But him taking out a full-page ad is just brought back a lot of memories. Portland Trailblazers, meh.
Don't really have nothing for them. I mean, I don't really like the direction of the team. I don't like Denny Advia as a number one option star. I just really don't like what they're building. I actually will take that back. I like what they're building somewhat. I like Kamara. I like Klingon. I like some pieces, but I think if Denny Advia is the centerpiece of all of that, you're not going to do nothing.
The reason I put meh is they're exactly 500. They're 40-40 as we speak. The bright spots are this. Drew Holiday, I think, overperformed this year. Damian Lillard, you can say it was just all-star weekend. Him winning the three-point contest meant something to me. And I think having that in your back pocket next year at least makes you feel a little bit better. Like, hey, maybe we won't go exactly 500 next season. Sacramento Kings are next. One word's embarrassing. Don't really need to spend a lot of time there.
Awful.
San Antonio Spurs. One word I had for them was meteoric. They had a meteoric rise this year. I do want to give you your flowers. I give you a lot of shit for what was said before the season. You give me a lot of shit, rightfully so. But whatever you're right, you were right about this. I had no vision of them winning 60-plus games and being a contender for the 1 seed. Never thought that.
Arrival is my word for them because they have arrived. They're not just knocking on the doorstep. They're entering the building. That's how good the Spurs are. And they can win a championship this year.
We're so close to being over.
Yep.
We're so close. There's only
you don't think the Spurs can win a championship?
No, I don't. No. They couldn't beat OKC or Denver in a series, and that's the Western Conference alone.
Why couldn't they beat Denver?
Have you seen what Denver's done the last 10 games? I know they've been inconsistent. They're peaking at the right time. They have a former MVP. They have the best player in the world. They have won a world title before. They have the playoff experience. They would not beat the Denver Nuggets.
San Antonio just beat them the other night. It went to OT.
It's a regular season. It's an April regular season game.
And De'Aaron Fox didn't play well. San Antonio could definitely make the NBA Finals. I think them and Denver, they're pretty even to me. Like, Denver, I know is proven, but San Antonio could definitely beat them.
You just praised how Aaron Gordon did against Victor Wembanyama.
No, yes, he's amazing. He is their X factor. But the Spurs and Nuggets is a 7-game series at the very least.
Sure, but I got the Nuggets winning it.
Okay, that if it goes to 7, that means any team could win.
If you are picking 2 teams in the same conference that can beat them, if they're the 3rd-ranked contender in their own conference, I don't think they can win an NBA Finals. That's all I'm saying.
I think that they're the second, though. They're the second best team in the West. All year long, they have been that.
So you're just saying they won't have to play OKC You see Spurs beating OKC.
They're 3-1 against OKC this year.
Okay, but we just talked about how OKC was second most affected by injuries. I think when OKC is fully healthy, now that they are fully healthy going into the playoffs, we're getting a fully loaded OKC team that's going to defend their title.
Okay. Well, I disagree with you disagreeing with my ceiling for the Spurs. I think the Spurs can win it all.
So anybody in the East, you think they can beat? I don't think you understand that you would have to beat the Denver Nuggets, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Boston Celtics to win a title, and you think the Spurs can do that?
Who's guarding Wemby on the Celtics?
Jayson Tatum? I don't know. Jaylen Brown?
What? Really? I mean,
what are you going to do, Neemias Queta? Like, I would put Jayson Tatum on Victor Wembanyama. It's not crazy.
And that's 7'4" versus 6'8". Like, Victor Wembanyama, he's a mismatch.
What is Aaron Gordon? How tall is Aaron Gordon?
Well, Aaron Gordon's a little bit different. Aaron Gordon's a little bit different. But even then, Aaron Gordon can't guard Wemby. He can guard him well in stretches and stuff. But no, Wemby, I feel like we're kind of underrating his impact here. That's all I'm saying.
NBA history has told us for 100 years that you have to go through the playoffs at least one time before you win a championship. As great as the Thunder were, they got bounced They got bounced by the Dallas Mavericks, and then they eventually won a title. Same with the Boston Celtics. Same with the Golden State Warriors that you mentioned. Same with pretty much everybody in the history of the NBA. And Victor Wembanyama, as great as he is, it's everybody else on his team that he needs to.
I understand it's everybody else on his team, but they have shooting. Devin Vassell is one of the better three-point shooters in the NBA. Harrison Barnes can space the floor. They have a secondary all-star in De'Aaron Fox. They have Stephon Castle, who's an all-league defender. And since the all-star break, I believe he's shooting 40% from three. Dylan Harper is also shooting above 40% from three since the all-star break. They're shooting the ball much better. They have three guards that can penetrate the defense, and they have Victor Wembanyama, who's a mismatch nightmare and the best defender in basketball. I think that the Spurs, they're legit. Like, I give them a real chance. They can win it all. There are only three teams this year that I think can win the championship. That's OKC, Spurs, Nuggets. Those are the three. The East, all due respect to them, I think they can, like, between the Pistons, Celtics, Knicks, and Cavs, they can all make the finals, but I don't think either of them can win it.
I think either one of them can 100% win it. If you go through that Western Conference and you're banged up at the end of it, I can see the Boston Celtics taking advantage of it. I can even see the New York Knicks taking advantage of it. And you bring in De'Aaron Fox like this, like it helps your conversation. It does not. This is his lowest scoring output in 7 years since his sophomore season. And if we're talking about contracts and stuff, the only reason we're not talking about De'Aaron Fox and his contract is because Victor Wembanyama is on this team, and Mitch Johnson has done the coaching job that he has done to get them to a 60-win team. If this wasn't a 60-win team, we're talking about De'Aaron Fox and how good that move actually was.
60-win team, Fox has been a part of that, and he sacrificed. And the contract they gave him is what it is. If anything, worst comes to worst, the expansion draft that happens in 3 years, they can just not protect them. And a team will probably eat that contract up as an expansion team. I mean, I think they've been fine.
As much as everybody wants to bang on Amen Thompson and how disappointing he's been this year, Amen Thompson has had better numbers than De'Aaron Fox, and that's just a fact. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, De'Aaron Fox is playing with multiple players that have to get the ball and score.
Amen Thompson's playing with Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün. What are we doing here?
Okay, the Spurs have Wemby, Castle, Fox, Vassell, and Harper. Those are like 5 players that can score 15-plus a night.
Amen Thompson can walk into San Antonio and average 18 points that De'Aaron Fox is averaging right now. It's not that crazy.
Yeah, but then he doesn't offer any of the spacing that De'Aaron Fox has. Would you rather Stephon Castle or Amen Thompson?
I don't know. It could go either way. Both great defenders. Both great perimeter defenders.
But who could shoot better? Stephon Castle could shoot better.
Yes. Okay.
I would go with Stephon Castle.
Stephon Castle's a better fit. Yes. By the way, the conversation was never about him. I'm saying that Amen Thompson's numbers were better than De'Aaron Fox, and if the Spurs had not won 60 games, we would be talking about Fox's contract. That's all I was saying.
But they won 60 games, and when Wemby's been out, Fox has been there, and he's been playing really well. I
Really
know
well
he's
as a
had
stretch.
a bad stretch recently, but we don't have to go knock him for the entire season. He's a reason why they have won 60 games.
Okay, fair. They've won 60 games. I'll shut up. Toronto Raptors, one word, expensive. Starting lineup cost $154 million this year alone. All that to be a 6 through 9 seed in the Eastern Conference. It's just expensive. That's all I would say.
They're just odd.
Yep.
It's an odd lineup, odd fit.
Utah Jazz, I put Cabo, and Washington Wizards, I put Bizarre.
Jazz, I put tanking, and the Wizards opportunistic. Anthony Davis, Trae Young trades. They try to capitalize on stars that didn't have much value.
Yeah, next year is going to be interesting to watch for them. Excited for that. Joel, appreciate you taking the time and can't wait for the playoffs coming up, brother.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on.